Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Village of Bartlett Committee of the Whole for June 17th, 2025. I call this meeting to order. Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Betterman? Daney?
Yeah, here.
Gansey?
Here.
Hopkins?
Here.
Laporte?
Here.
Sikorsky?
Here.
President Gunstein.
Here. Tonight, we have our town hall portion. If anybody would like to address town hall, please do so by stepping up to the podium, stating your name and address, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anybody that would like to address the board? All right. Nobody's online? You didn't get a text, right? All right. All right. That takes us to standing committee reports, Community and Economic Development, Committee Chairman Gansey.
All right, we have one item, a BETA grant for TL's Four Seasons. TL's has been an anchor restaurant at 110 West Bartlett Avenue in downtown Bartlett for over 20 years. Owner-operator Sean Lee has been working with staff to update and upgrade his sign and is also adding an awning to improve the appearance of his building. The quote from Chicago Sign and Light Company details $34,197 as the total BETA eligible cost for this project, which will be completed in accordance with village codes. This is the first BETA application this fiscal year. Mr. Lee's request was reviewed by the Economic Development Commission at its May 12th meeting, at which time the EDC unanimously recommended a 50% rebate that will be approximately $17,098 when the project is completed and proof of payment is submitted. Please note the project cost has increased slightly since the EDC meeting due to fabrication of aluminum composite material as backing for the sign instead of painting the front of the building. We haven't had a BETA grant, I think, in over a year.
Yeah.
I believe this is our modified BETA grant, right? Where it's quicker process.
That's correct, yes.
I have no questions. All right, so we will forward the BETA request from TL's to the next village board meeting agenda for a final vote.
Good.
Thank you, Trustee Gansey. Planning and Zoning Committee Chairman Hopkins.
Thank you, President Gunstein. There's two items on our agenda. The first one is the Blue Heron Business Park. The petitioner is requesting to amend the Blue Heron Business Park annexation agreement and plan development to redesignate the property at the northwest corner of Miles Parkway and West Bartlett Road from Development Area 1 to Development Area 3 to allow the construction of a tire distribution and trucking service facility for Nova 2. The petitioner has submitted a site plan for a 50,540 square foot facility, which will serve as Nova and Pavas Group's second building within the Blue Heron Business Park. With that, I will turn it over to Director Stone to tell us more.
So when Blue Heron Business Park was originally approved in 2003, it was divided into 4 different development areas. Each of them had different uses as well as different setback and bulk requirements. The petitioner is requesting to change the last lot back to Development Area 3 for light industrial uses. This is very similar to what we did at the northeast corner of Miles and West Bartlett Road for Allen Horticulture last year. So the proposed building would have two curb cuts on Miles Park, or 3 technically. So one would be for passenger vehicles. The one further north is going to be an in-only for trucks. There are 3 drive-through doors, and then the trucks would exit north onto Miles Parkway. This is for a business that already has 1 location within the Blue Heron Business Park, and this is going to be some tire distribution as well as some minor repair.
Is there any questions from the committee?
I have no question.
Will this facility generate any sales tax?
I will let the petitioner answer that.
Hi, Dean Kelly. Thank you. Yes, I believe they will, but they don't want to oversell it, so there will be some sales tax.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Then we will forward this on to the, we'll send this to the Plan Commission for a public hearing
Correct.
and for further review.
I do have one request. So, going to the Planning Commission on July 3rd, and then come back to the board on July 15th. If we could condense that meeting, have that be the public hearing, because if I had to get 2 readings, there's not a meeting beginning of
So he's referring to the public hearing for the annexation agreement amendment.
So does he want to just bring it back to the board and not to a committee meeting?
Correct.
I mean, I would be okay with that.
As long as planning and zoning passes it through?
Yeah,
I have no problem with that.
yeah, I don't have any objection with that.
Let's do that.
As long as it's going to look like Allen, right?
It's going to look very similar. Not, I don't know if the landscaping would be quite as good, because they're not a landscaping company, but actually, it'll look quite nice. We showed them that plan and said it needs to look pretty similar to this. Harris Architects did a very good job, as did Mac Design.
Have you tried to sell this to a developer to put something that fits a B3 district?
We have. We have a broker, Lee and Associates, that is marketing the Southwest, Southwind Business Center directly south of there. We've had no retail interest whatsoever.
That's surprising to me out there. But it's not my thing, but there's not much out there.
No, there's not.
Couple gas
We want
stations.
to get some retail on the corner.
Yeah.
We're having a hard time with our last lot in Southwood Business Center. It's off the frontage, it's about 3.8 acres, so maybe that's what you're going to talk about in closed session with.
Yeah. All right, excellent.
Dean.
Thank you for being here. All right, our next item is the Lake Street Corridor TIF discussion. The Village of Bartlett adopted the Lake Street Corridor TIF District and Redevelopment Plan on September 3rd, 2024. Christy Stone will do a presentation for us. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Hopkins. This is a little update on what's going on with Lake Street. I wanted to go over first with what the current zoning designations are. So we have a few residential uses right now, SR2 and SR6. A lot of the property that's identified for SR2 is actually owned by IDOT and is right-of-way, so technically doesn't have zoning. But just for clarification. And then we have B2, B3, and B4 commercial uses. I kind of wanted to cover the differences between those zoning districts. So B2 allows anything that's in B1, which is basically any retail use, but in addition, it's also pharmacies, convenience stores. It adds some special uses such as dispensaries and packaged liquor sales. The B3 zoning includes everything I just talked about, as well as fitness centers, supermarkets, and then special uses like banquet halls, recreational establishments, and vehicle sales. B4 includes all of those, as well as theaters, recreational establishments, and then special uses like hotels and truck stop establishments. Industrial uses like warehouses, self-storage, and distribution centers are currently prohibited within our TIF district. So any of the sites that currently have B2 zoning or B3 zoning would always have the option to come in and request some like B4 zoning or something like that. We do have flexibility, and that kind of will carry us into the future land use plan. The residential zoning district we have either calls for 4 units per acre, which is single-family zoning, or multifamily density, which is 14 units per acre. That could be apartments, duplexes, townhomes. The future land use plan doesn't specify what type of residential uses we want in any location, just that we should have residential. I do want to give credit for a lot of the exhibits that you're going to see. Our intern, Lauren Howe, who's a Bartlett resident, prepared a lot of the exhibits for this, so I want to give her credit for some of the hard work that she's been doing for the village. So this is the Lake Street Future Land Use Plan.
Excuse me. Can you go back to that slide real quick? I don't see in your legend here ER1 and 2, and maybe you said it and I missed it.
They're not currently within the zone, there's no zoning districts that are
Not in the TIF.
ER1 with it, or ER2, those are outside of the TIF boundaries.
Thank you.
So our future land use plan, anything that's red is identified for commercial or mixed use. So that could still, if we had a developer that came in that wanted to do some commercial uses and have residential components to it, it would still be allowable per this future land use plan. So that's why you see that we have some B4 zoning right now, some SR2, some B3, but it could be a mixture of retail and residential along the, we would want retail along Lake Street, but south of it, to provide a buffer, could be some more higher density, such as like townhome uses incorporated into those proposals. East of Oak Avenue, one of the places that there's a little discrepancy between our zoning and our future land use plan is between the triangle parcel that we recently annexed and the property that is currently home to the Crest Motel. U46 owns about 150 feet of Lake Street frontage. So that area, ideally, we would like to see commercial uses there as well. So Lauren, as I said, has done some conceptual site plans based on the size of some of the current lots. The lots that you see at the intersection of South Bartlett and Lake Street, as well as we have two triangle parcels technically, are all less than 1.5 acres. So some uses that we could potentially have there would be like a coffee shop, fast food with drive-through. You could have a mid-sized commercial restaurant that's a standalone, or you could have a small shopping center possibly with a drive-through. Again, these are smaller lots. There's not really property that you could acquire to make them any larger, so you're limited to what you could put there. We do have some sites that if somebody came in and bought multiple properties, that we could get some more different uses, such as a hotel or a larger standalone restaurant. So this is really where we'd be looking to kind of have people assemble some property together to get some of the uses that we desire along the Lake Street corridor. Truck stop establishments would also be permitted in these properties. They're zoned B4. And so this is kind of a layout where it's a truck stop. It has the diesel pumps, it has the regular pumps, as well as a car wash. And then a conceptual site plan for, we have one site that's 7.5 acres. The property owner came in at one point to do a mixed-use development, which had an office building, assisted living daycare, inpatient rehab, as well as a senior housing facility that was 5 stories. That project has not moved forward. So there are other uses that we could have there, such as townhomes or apartments. Apartments seem to be being constructed in a lot of the surrounding municipalities. So I just kind of want to give you a sample of some of the housing types and the different options that we could get for that property. Most properties out here, you'd be looking at like 2 to 4 stories. It's not downtown, it's not transit-oriented development, so this is more of the standard. You don't usually see more than 3 stories. And then going over to the large property that is mainly owned by IDOT, we were looking at possibly doing residential or townhomes. Again, this is going to have to be someone that's assembled some properties together due to the layout. We would want to have some sort of connection to the east so that there's 2 means of access, because we don't know what IDOT's going to allow. Back in 1989, there was a site plan approved for the 19-acre commercial site that's currently for sale. So this is kind of the layout of what they were looking at back then. So there would be you could get 4 outlots there, just to give you a sense of scale for the property. And again, IDOT owns the property to the south as well, so there would be room for additional either commercial or, again, maybe townhomes or other residential development in that space. Now to the IDOT-owned property. This is 42 acres. IDOT has stated that they would convey any wetlands to either the village or the Park District, but they will not vacate any land of the until Oak Avenue realignment is complete. So we don't really know how much property there is, so it's hard to come up with any sort of master conceptual plan for this large piece of property within the TIF. But we do think it'd be residential kind of directly across from Eastview and try to get more of a mix, especially along the Lake Street frontage. We'd want to get as much commercial there as possible. So this is kind of an update on what's going on since we adopted this last year. 555 West Lake Street. So we have it. It's the Villages. We recorded the judicial deed on the 13th. The next steps are going to be the underground storage tank and hydraulic lift removal, then demolishing the building and pavement, then site cleanup and restoration, and advertise for sale or prepare an RF request for proposals. So we've talked to our environmental consultant, and they think this property, because we have to go through the IEPA approval process, that this will probably be ready for development sometime next year. So just to give you a time frame for everything with that. 231 and 251 East Lake Street were annexed last May and rezoned to B3. The wells are going to be sealed next week. Then they will be applying for their demolition permit applications. The village reimburses the lesser the cost of 50% of the cost of demolition or $50,000 upon proof of payment. The property owner has until November 21st to have those buildings demolished in order to be eligible for that reimbursement. So that is in line with the annexation agreement that we approved with them. So they are moving forward. And if you recall, when we were going through the TIF development, we had these sites and we said we needed them because we needed the blight to qualify for a TIF. Now we're getting rid of the blight. So this is step one. U46, as I said earlier, has about 150 feet of frontage. Staff is meeting with them in July to discuss the functionality of their property, as well as some TIF-eligible expenses that school districts qualify for. So we're trying to get those conversations started. We've met with them a couple times, but they're going to have a new superintendent of operations, so we're going to be meeting with them as well.
Can you show on that last slide what area we're trying to inquire from U46?
So let me go to.
Just to kind of give an idea of what we're,
So we're looking, oh, this is not, let's see.
Kind of looks like the baseball field, the back baseball
I don't have my, let's see. We are looking to see what we could get in this area. So we want to see if they'd be interested in selling off. They have like an old like softball field or some sort of baseball field in the back that they don't seem to utilize that much. And then to see if we could get any additional depth to that triangle piece, just to make that more marketable. Due to the shallowness of that lot, it is very hard to find a user for that. And then this Friday is the deadline for the engineering firms to submit their statement of interest for phases 1 and 2 of the Oak Avenue realignment. So the village is going to be working with the Bureau of Local Roads and IDOT. So we're trying to find a firm that's pre-qualified with IDOT and familiar with the documentation that's needed for the MFT funds. So that I think is really key to getting that southwest corner of Oak and Lake Street redeveloped. It's IDOT, it's gonna take some time, so we're trying to really start this at the very beginning of the TIF. IDOT does have plans for some intersection improvements at South Bartlett and Lake, as well as North Oak and Lake. This includes some sidewalks, some bike paths. They're working on right-of-way acquisition and obtaining temporary easements. We don't know exactly when this is going to happen. It's in their 5-year plan, but their plans change periodically. But this is something that we've been in contact with them and with Streamwood, incorporating the bike paths and working with them to come out with an agreement on that. So like I said, these building demolitions will reduce the blight in the TIF. We're looking at redeveloping 555 West Lake Street, probably sometime next year. And IDOT projects take time. So we're starting this now. The TIF lasts for 23 years, but I think we're really on the right path to get redevelopment starting. And because the nature of this site is that we're dealing with multiple property owners, this is different than a lot of the other TIF districts that you see or hear about, where the village is the one property owner So they hire someone to come up with a master plan for the entire site. So staff has been working with GIS, and we are creating they did a drone flyover last week, and they're going to be preparing an online application to help marketing some of the sites with the TIF. We're in contact with the property owners, trying to encourage them, to hire brokers, that it's more challenging to try to sell it themselves, seeing what we can get going out there. Does anyone have any questions?
I do. So even if we get the property from B46, it sounds like it's still very shallow, and so what, it'd be B3 butted up against that B4? Like, how do we know it's going to be enough for someone to want it?
So I think if we get enough property there, it would be a developer that's interested in buying all of the property, so that triangle piece in addition to whatever U46 is willing to sell.
And so does it make sense that there's B3 right against the B4 there, or is that going to be a problem?
It shouldn't be a problem, and if someone wants to come in and because they have a larger property, we could always rezone it to B4. So it gives us the flexibility that we need. Anyone can always come in for rezoning to make sure that it fits their needs. Or they could apply for a variance if they need to due to the odd shape of the lot. We could give them some zoning relief that way as well.
Have we gotten any response from anybody just excited about us doing a TIF there?
So when the signs first went up for 555 West Lake Street, we did get a few phone calls from people thinking it was for sale and asking what the price was, and we didn't own it yet. So we have a lot of work to do first to get it ready for sale, but we are going to be eligible to use the leaking underground storage tank fund. So some of our funds, or some of our expenses will be reimbursed from that, and then any costs that we have that aren't reimbursable through that program, we would be able to reimburse ourselves through the TIF funds.
What's the cost for that site marketable?
Approximately $260,000 were the estimates that we had.
And what in particular is the most time-consuming piece of it that's going to take us into 2026?
Removing the tanks is going to be pretty quick. That's going to be probably in August. Demolishing the building and the pavement is going to be September or October. Then everything up with the remediation is all through IEPA. So that slows down our process significantly.
But it can be marketed while that's being done, correct?
But yes,
Yeah, which I think that was kind of the goal, was to get that moving and coincide with the ability for staff to market it for a use that the village wanted to see there.
So then what's our break even on that, 260? Like, what do we have to sell it for to break even? It's too soon to tell.
I would say sometimes the village board has options, like, do you just want to post it for sale? Do you want to put out a request for proposal? And then you can see what uses, what developers want to come in, and what offers they want to make, and you can you have a lot of control when we own the property.
Sounds good.
I think the village should build a strip mall themselves and put a building up, because we know what it's like dealing with a developer and selling a piece of property and then have it not be developed. And that becomes a huge problem, a huge legal problem, and then there's a lot of finger pointing, and it's still not built. So I think it's something that we should keep in the back of our heads. So.
I think we as a village control the property. We should take that control and run with it for a while and see if we get proposals for price and uses that we feel are deemed suitable for what we want to see in our TIF over there. I think the general consensus, or the general state conversation, should start, maybe what don't we want to see there? Maybe we should think about what we don't want to see there, and then work backwards from that. And see how long it takes to build hype on that piece of land. I think by putting a sign up that says public hearing and getting the amount of influx of calls just on that, where people drive by it every day and they said, hey, I didn't know it was for sale, and they think that it's a developer doing that, but it was a public hearing for the acquiring of it. So the thought process, and my thought process is, let's see what happens. Let's put a sign out there, market it as TIF district, market it as village owned, and see what happens. And if if we get a developer that wants to put a retail strip mall in, it's great. We can encourage that retail strip developer to, you know, what kind of uses do we want there? Do we want a coffee house? Do we want a drive-through? Do we want a dispensary? But the bigger thing is that particular piece of property is not hindering our development because we own it, and it doesn't sit adjacent or between two other pieces of property that are slowing down development. That property right there does not hinder our ability to get Oak realignment done. It does not hinder anything to assemble properties because it sits by itself. You know, after a certain period of time, maybe then we have a discussion down the line. But I think right now I think it's in our best interest to just market it for proposals and see what, you know, comes. It's a very valuable corner. It's a high-traffic corner. And I believe the other corner is also for sale as well. So there could be potentially two developments at the same time that would move forward quickly and start paying into the TIF early. So the longer we sit on it, the less likely it is to start funding the TIF.
So we're saying to go out, so send RFPs out now or sometime in the future or after it's cleaned up?
I mean, if we want to see first how things go with interest from posting a sign, we can do that and see if that gets interest.
I think more than posting just a sign, now it's just drive-by traffic.
So, I mean, we would be promoting it on our village website. Like I said, we're working on a GIS application to go out. And then the,
That's what I was gonna say, Tony, does he have?
yeah,
Part of our
and then it's,
broker blast, we're putting together materials with A5. This is like, if you want to elaborate, Tony?
Right, we're getting a sign posted relatively quickly. We're working with Public Works already. Some of the things that were mentioned in terms of our social media, reaching out to our, we do a broker blast every so often with about 400 local brokers and developers, always adding new people to that. We're going to feature that property in one coming up very soon. So we're going to use a variety of our marketing techniques, and Paula had mentioned incorporating it into our branding campaign that we're going to be doing, featuring a lot of the Lake Street TIF district as well.
What size is that property and what types of buildings could, you know, like on your last slide, you showed what would fit on this acreage, what would fit on that acreage?
so it's less than an acre. It's 0.89 acres. So it's a pretty small, but like I said, that could fit a small, very small retail. It could fit a coffee shop. It could fit a lot of the uses that I showed her in the first slides. So coffee shop, and then probably like a small shopping center, something about the size of Oakfield Plaza would actually fit on that. Not the big Oakfield Plaza, but the little outlot in front of it where Cernix is.
Okay.
So something about that size could fit on there.
So IDOT owns the property from the Elgin O'Hare expansion. Are we allowed to put the Oak realignment in prior to them conveying that property? Did I hear that correctly, or was that incorrect?
I think what our discussions with IDOT have been is work up the Phase 1 concept for how Oak would realign. Then they'll start talking to us about how they would convey that land and all that stuff. So I think it's going to run parallel. Once we move further down the road on design and they agree on the realignment, then they would start talking to us about acquiring that land.
They are open to it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if a developer decided to put one of those corners under contract at some point, would that light, would they have to go through the process themselves to get that light and that access point to extend Oak, at least into their development?
If you're talking about Bartlett, like this intersection with Oak and Bartlett, that I believe will be a village project with IDOT.
Okay.
We would get that built, and then any developments south of there would build off of the realignment of Oak.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of understand that we can start the process prior to them negotiating and conveying. Is that that's correct?
That's what we're doing on Friday.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
I want to say thank you to Laura, or Lauren, for the visuals, because I think that really helps. So thank you for that. Great job.
So, does anybody have anything that they saw on here that they don't like or would like to see bigger picture? I got one, I don't want to see Prospect go through to Park Boulevard.
We already covered that when I did my
Correct.
update on the thoroughfare plan.
Just wanna make sure that's still not happening.
That is still not happening.
I think
Lauren had an old site plan, and she did the concept of showing that, and I was like, take it off. We don't want to show that.
For me, I think it's important just to keep the frontage for as much commercial as possible, tax-generating commercial property. If the board feels that there's ample amount of space for residential or mixed use or multi on the setback lots, or if it makes sense across the street from Eastview to have residential, I think that's, you know, it seems fitting. That was a residential development at one point.
Correct. If you look closely, you can actually see where the roads were, because they installed the underground utilities, because he sold it for more money because they were improved lots.
Ford Lane went straight through, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. It was to go straight through, and then there was a small cul-de-sac. Oh, you can't see my pointer on here.
We can see it on Google Earth here.
Okay, but yeah, it does kind of loop, there was a cul-de-sac in there.
So, U46, has there been any meaningful conversations other than surface level for that triangle piece?
I believe our meeting in July is going to be more in-depth.
Okay.
Do you think we'll have to pay for it, or it'll be more TIF incentives? Because aren't they gaining some of the front property?
We don't know if they want more of the front property, so we're trying to figure out what, and right now there isn't any, they can't do a project now. We can't give them TIF funds if they do a project now. We have to wait until there's increment. So it's kind of hard to negotiate something when we don't know how much increment we're going to have.
That's why it's important on the pad-ready sites to get them going and developed as soon as possible.
Yes.
So, more the reason I think that we should start marketing it. So, that's all I had, so I don't know if any of the other trustees had any feedback on the layout.
Move along.
We belong?
I said, let's move along.
Oh,
That's all we have under building and zoning tonight.
thank you, Chairman Hopkins.
I still can't get used to it merged. How long has it been now?
It's been a while.
All right. Right to the cover here. All right. Make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Daney, second by trustee Hopkins. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Betterman,
Yes.
Daney,
Yes.
Gansey,
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Laporte,
Yes.
Zelinski.
Yes.
We are adjourned. And thank you for not making me have to sign anything.